Black Adam.
He's a weapon.
Howdys and salutations, y'all. How are you doing? Hope things are good on your end. They're plugging along A-OK over here, though I'll admit it's going to be a little bit of a low energy stream. Am I getting a no source selected message? It does appear to be actually streaming, so I'm confused. Oh, got it. Selecting the wrong thing. Wonderful. Anyway, yep, we're back here, back doing it again. Where we left off, just want to do a little bit of a recap, is we've been looking at drawn faces, but one of the things we're going to need to do, of course, is to do actual practical practice. Because this is decent, but there's obviously room to improve. An interesting style. The nose is actually I kind of like how the nose turned out. We'll have to work with that, see if there's variants we can do, or if it's stuck in one nose type only. But besides that, the only way to really improve on that is going to be to just do quite a lot of practice with it, which I'll have to do sometime, but that's not necessarily easy for stream, and it's not necessarily easy for, it's just doing a lot of the same. We may do it some other time, but I want to, for this month while we're trying to focus on learning new things, and then I can keep reinforcing other times, we're going to keep on keeping on with the new stuff. So, in addition to insights on how I draw faces and how to improve from this into this, we also looked at some of the doodles in the sort of cartoony style that I've got going right now. And, it's really fun, but as you can see here, it really only works from one angle, and it doesn't really work for full-grown people. Because, whoops, as you can see, this is based on, actually, it's the same reference image as this one, believe it or not. But, the problem with the style is that the nose also defines the cheek. Just this line, this nose, also defines the outer edge of, the lower half of the face, which is really adorable on, cutesy little small characters, and doesn't really work when you want to have much variation in the characters. So it's an area that needs improvement. Now, there's a few ways to go about that. Oh, and also the obvious note, front view super, at least the way I've been doing it lately, super doesn't work. I mean, jeepers. Where do you even start with that? So, instead of getting bogged down too much and trying to manually fix that, I thought this might be a good day to do a little bit of a style study. Or rather, a couple of quick recaps. Some I did, jeepers, was it more than a year ago already? It's been a long time, before streaming. Oh, yeah, it was a year and a half. Crikey. Okay, well, we'll get to that. But yeah, so I want to do style studies of three different styles. We'll see how many we get to in time. of similar where they do this sort of compressed-ish face styling, and see if we can't find ways to either learn from how they do it, or to, I don't know, at least we'll see what they do and see some other options. Because I'd like to make this work, I just need to figure out how to be clever with it. And I do want to caveat, these are all, I'm treating these the way that an art teacher would probably treat like the old master style studies or master studies, where you're going and studying the art and seeing how they did it. But these are all like contemporary artists. So A, I'm definitely going to direct you to go check out their stuff as we go through it. But B, know that like, it's not like I've studied their notes or anything. Like, I don't know if this is actually how they're constructing and thinking about their drawings. It's just sort of how I understand the proportions and styles that they're using. So I don't profess to speak for the artists. I'm not the artist equivalent of the Lorax. I do not, in fact, have the deepest lore, but I do think that we've got some stuff that's worth looking at. So, let me pull some things up. Not a giant window, Firefox, though I appreciate the offer. Let's start with... Oh, this one's cute. It's a cute little comic. Not little, it's been going for ages. It's called Pepsiaphobia, and it's great fun. And I will say on these, I have done style studies on these ones before, just on my own time in a sketchbook. So I'm not going to be fully trying to figure everything out because I've got a little bit of an idea. Let's at least jump to the start of the current episode, see what we got. I guess I ought to. That'll be a good example one. We'll do phobia. Let's see. I got to figure out the best way to share screen this. Okay. I don't want to show Spotify, I want to show this. Yes, there we go. This is, I wonder if I can zoom in on it. Sort of. Maybe. Minimum window dimensions, curses. Well, at least you'll be able to see the important one. And this is by Daisy McGuire. I'll throw that in chat too so that anyone who's watching the VOD knows what this is. Reference, or let's see. Why am I searching the users? I need to be actually typing in chat. Style study reference 1. Wait, that's not how you spell that. That's like you're talking to a cat. Pepsiaphobia. Daisy McGuire. Let me make sure I'm spelling that right. Put the artist name on here. Yeah, Daisy McGuire. G-Y-R-E. Okay, there we go. We will jump right into that. So, this is the first one I want to look at because I really, having tried to do some doodles mimicking this style, it's a really fun one. It's very expressive too. It's got a lot of cool things going on. Now, obviously, you can even see from this little snippet. Wow, that's not. I clicked so many wrong buttons there. Like, they don't do character faces just one way. You've got very angular faces here. You've got like the rounded faces. You've got his face and all these different things going on. Like, they're not just one style, but forgot about the TV tropes one. But I just want to focus on this sort of rounded one because it's a similar deal to what we've got. The nose, the cheek being super rounded and like a defining feature of the character. And so I want to sort of build off of that. Although it might be telling about the limits of this style that I'm doing, that not all of the characters follow this trope, and Daisy actually varies these a lot more. So that's something that I'll need to keep in mind, and it's maybe a learning lesson in its own right. Okay, so let's get ourselves a nice vector layer going here. And we'll just call this one Pepsiaphobia. Really, Pepsiaphobia. Construct. Okay, because you may remember, and this is the way I want to sort of approach learning these ones, is you may remember from last time we got in there and we sort of looked at how we were constructing the face. Like, we looked at the sort of quote-unquote Loomis method. I know Proco does a lot of art that's built around that concept. I've also got the actual Loomis book here, at least one of them. So you see you've got sort of the different proportions, subdivide the head and all this jazz. I'm not going to go through the explanations because people have done it far better. Instead, I'm going to recommend you look at one of Proco's free web courses for it. They're going to be better. Although even just this doodle one is better than the one I attempted to construct yesterday. But you can basically see how we're sort of building out a face, and we can use these lines to figure out where everything needs to go pretty easily. Boom, human face. Ta-da! Terrible spiky hair, but like also a bald spot. Sure, I have no idea what this guy is. This is not a Pepsiaphobia. Let's just put him on his own layer. Zoop you on doodle of construct. Sure, I'm probably not going to need to remember what that layer is. But yeah, so the point is, though, that we were figuring out the underlying structure first. And that was sort of the piece we focused on. So when you look at other artist styles, one way to try to think about it is to say, okay, if we were to try to figure out a structure instead of for a real human head for their style of cartoonized head, if you'll accept cartoonized as a word, which you probably shouldn't, let's look at what the actual proportions are for this one. And we may not go to the full math of like, oh, we've got like a 5:1 this and like three eye widths across the face and all that jazz. But it is handy to see if you even can start with the circle. And I'd argue for if you look at the character on the far left there, you probably couldn't start his face with a circle very easily. But if we look at phobias here, we definitely can. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a little bit more. Unfortunately, I've been super tired and a little behind. Oh, that was a good one. Let's bring it back. Okay. A little behind on things, and I know that's making excuses, but it basically just means I haven't warmed up. So this is going to be a little rough at first. There we go. That's a circle. Now, looking at this, we can still get like that 3/4 view line, although I'm not going to put it way off to the side, I don't think, because even looking at, let's see, I'm going to do a quick doodle over here first that's super rough, just so that we can sort of know what we're talking about. This is going to be a terrible facsimile. We've got kind of the hair coming off. Okay, bad facsimile. But the point is, the actual like edge of the face on the hairline is here, which is really like, it's not a halfway, but it's close-ish to halfway between the full width. As opposed to like, well, okay, so the hairline's there, and the actual like center where the nose is and the nose line and all is sort of over here. So it's not quite well, it's kind of a thirds thing at this particular angle. You've got 1/3 with the eye and the hair. You've got 1/3 with the other eye over to the ear. I'm not sure this is making any sense without the reference image. I'm looking at this thing over, this reference over there. Then you've got the third one that's more of like the ear and the back of the hair. Maybe that's how we think about it. Let's think in thirds. Let's remove this terrible facsimile. Dreadful, really. Let's see. So, removing that, we will try to start thinking about the circle in thirds, knowing that the hair is going to be part of that, so we're going to give a little space for that. We've got our nose line here, so I'm going to go from the center, I guess really the center of this full width. The center there, bring that down. And then looking at the height, I really think the circle is actually, we're not going to need to go too far down. I think based on when I was testing this earlier, we really don't need like a full third all the way down here. Let's see. Yeah, we really can probably have that a little bit. That's especially true of the younger characters. I don't think Pepsia, the titular character, is actually on here right now on screen, but she's around. But yeah, so let's bring this line all the way down. We'll use my awkward bad curve there. And Phobia's actually tilted a little bit this way. Let's make sure that we're ending this curve like a little further back than the start, or at least roughly equal to it. So yeah, somewhere back here, really. Oh, I want that line. I just want to get rid of this one. There we go. The undo command is great unless you happen to do things in the wrong order. Because then you also undo them in the wrong order. Actually, let's keep that one. That one's interesting. We'll lean into it a little bit. Okay. These are just guidelines. If they're not 100% exact, that's okay. I'm just trying to figure out rough proportions. Let's see. Likewise, we've sort of got... If we think about now the full height of this, including this chin piece down here. Oops. On the eraser mode. There we go. Okay, so we've got that at roughly full height. It looks like, and I'm just eyeballing this from the reference, it looks like the nose is about a third of the way up. A third of the way up. And I would guess the top of the eyes are a similar deal. But it may honestly all be a little bit higher. Like, but somewhere in there. Again. Like, if we were doing proper, like, I would have a ruler out if we were trying to just mimic this and create an actual perfect representation. But I'm trying to figure out sort of just how this, what makes the style tick. Oh, other thing I want to mention, you may see it just below the SysStreams logo up there on the leftish side. One of my favorite things, and it's something that I love studying in a bunch of different comics and backgrounds of shows and stuff, is I call them tiny faces, but really far away faces. How, like, because you look at Pepsia in the background of that panel on the left. That's not Pepsia, that's Phobia. You look at Phobia in the background, and like, it seems like it's the same level of detail at first glance, but you realize that there's actually a lot they're not showing there. The little skull earring doesn't have a face. The ear doesn't even have an inner line, which is, you know, smart. If you put all that detail, it'd be too busy and awful. So they've got just the right amount of detail, but I love seeing how artists simplify that and what details they choose to keep as being important and which ones they drop. Like, you'll notice that the line defining the shadow inside the ear is gone, but the little, like, curl of hair that goes around in front of the ear stays in both. And it just means that that's something that the artist thinks is particularly worth including. Again, I don't know if people put, like, hours of thought into all of that little detail, but the trained eye, that sort of stuff becomes, I assume, more natural for experts. That's usually sort of how expertise works, not one-to-one. But like they've got an eye for it. Whether intentional or not, they're doing a good job of like picking the right level of detail. So major kudos. Okay, so with that, we've sort of got eye level there, nose level there. We've got kind of the edge of sort of the ear/hairline demarcated here. I think we've got enough reference points that we can sort of begin. Let's see about that. Oh, just a note about using a circle as a reference here, because it's something that is easy to mix up. When you're using one, just before we start, when you're using one to try to construct something, there's sort of two ways to think about it. Part of the reason the Loomis head always throws me off is because I naturally kind of think about it one way, and the way that one works kind of thinks about it the other. But really, one of them is you're thinking about this as sort of how do I phrase this? Let me think my words for half a second. I'm gonna take a sip of water and let that word soup settle. I got distracted thinking about the phrase word soup and didn't come up with a conclusion. Let's try that again. You can tell I'm a little tired today. But let's see. Basically, is this circle designed to enclose the entire face or just a portion of it? Because, like, here's an example. If, let's say this top one is the full face, and this one is the partial build. We'll call it partial face. That's going to get weird if I say partial build. So if it's full face, then this is going to outline the full, like, everything. Maybe not little hair danglies, but like the whole of the hair and everything is in here. So we're going to be just cutting away. We're going to have to like cut out a little bit and then let the cheek happen here. With the eye, we're going to have to make sure that there's space for the top of the head to be a little flatter and the back to be a little flatter. And then, yeah, we've got like some dealy bops that escape, and the chin can escape a little bit. But like you're sort of thinking of it as the containing circle, almost the silhouette outline. The other way, and this is how Proco does it, and it's It's probably the better way for most types of things. Obviously, situationally, there will always be exceptions. But I think that this is probably better here, is we're using the circle as sort of a fundamental underlying structure. So this is kind of the round part of the skull in this case, the top part. And then we build off of it. So instead of like trying to cut pieces out inside, we're building out of it. You get like the cheek there, got the eyeline there. You can let the hair sort of grow off of it a little bit. You're not trying to flatten out from under it. You're just letting it sort of flatten out over it. And I don't know, I'm still rushing both of these, so I'm not sure either of them is going to end up looking great. Okay, let's tone it down a notch. Okay. Look, the point is, like, instead of trying to construct it down inside here, we're using it as a sort of jumping off point. And you can already see that's sort of what I'm planning to do on this one. Like, the cheek is going to end up expanding out this a ways. I'll have to figure out exactly how much as I go, because it's not a full third. It's maybe like a sixth-ish. That's not super important right now. Important thing is that we actually get started so we don't spend all day talking about this stuff and none of the day doing it. So, let me throw a new layer on. Pepsiaphobia. Let's see. I guess sketch. Again, this is super rough. I guess I gotta update my stream info if we're gonna do this. I want to make sure credit's where it's due. And also hype things up a little bit, you know. See. Don't know if anyone's gonna look for the Pepsiaphobia tag, but yeah, we'll see. Art. Let's see. Art style revamp. Style studies of the pool pros. That sounds of the pros. Not that they're not cool, but you know, we'll have Pepsiaphobia, and I'm definitely gonna try to do Owl House before the day is out. We'll see if we get to the third one. It's a fun style, very different style though. Well, yeah, different in its own way. It's still good. For the record, though, I highly recommend everyone check out like Pepsiaphobia. It's a very fun comic. Huck that in chat. There we go. I like having chat like in the VODs now, because I can type things myself and use them as notes for other people. I think that's fun. What happens if I click this? That looks okay. I should stop randomly clicking buttons in the stream overlay and hoping they don't break things. Let's test that when I'm not live, shall we? Okay, let's get back to doing what we was doing. Got ourselves an art reference, and we will get ourselves a drawing. Maybe. Probably. You know. Unless I accidentally hide the reference from myself. There we go, it's back. Awesome. Let's click in the correct window this time, shall we? Okay, so, knowing what we know about rough placements, again, the first one, so the way I recommend doing these style studies normally, it's not what we'll be doing here because time is a little bit of a limit, and I really ought to get to bed at some point. But what I recommend doing is do 2 or 3 just drawings of the characters from the show, or the comic, or whatever you're studying. Take note of the proportions, try to pay attention to how they work. If you can pick characters that look different from each other, that's even better. Make sure you're getting a wide variety, get the feel. And then go look up some reference images of actual people, or if it's a show not about people, of, you know, whatever thing you want to be drawing. Look up real ones. Or, you know, close enough facsimiles if there's fantasy creatures, you know. Try to look at those and try to draw them in the style. See if you're actually getting it. See if your proportions result in something that looks like it belongs in the style or something that doesn't. If it does, awesome. Like, you're onto a solid start and you can run with that. If it doesn't, go back and see if you can figure out specifically what's not working, what looks wrong. Usually for me, when that's the case, it's because I added too much detail from the real things when the original style abstracts them out. That's I find a common issue, for me anyway. Anyway, yeah, let's actually, get started on this, shall we? Part of me wants to start with the face outline, but the rest of me says not to do that. So instead, I'm going to start with the nose. Because it's fairly simple, and it's going to be, if I botch it, it's easy to fix later, and we can fix the angle of it. There we go. Angle of it's fixed. We can fix the size later. But having the nose position hammered out is actually pretty helpful. Because now it makes it a little easier for me to orient this eye, which I know crosses over the side of the face, as you can sort of see. I don't know if that reference is quite big enough. Let's make it a little bigger. It's a, yeah, that should be a little more visible, I hope. If anyone can't see what's going on with the reference, let me know. We can keep adjusting as needed. Cool. Okay, next up, we know that the ear is going to land. The bottom part of the ear seems to, the ear lives in this middle third and it's over here. The bottom part seems to land actually a little below the nose. And the top part isn't quite as high as the top of the eyes. So vertically, it's a little below the middle third. And horizontally, I really should probably have it like here where it's lined up with this third. Let's do that. We will decree the nose as being on this third, and if it's wrong, then we can adjust. And we will learn. That's going to be, what, here? It's going to fill a fairly sizable space. I shouldn't get caught up on details yet, but they're fun, darn it. That's not how you do that. Anywho, let's see. Now the thing is, as we get more reference points, it becomes easier to figure out where to put the future things, or to notice if you put something in the wrong place. So going off of ear height, knowing where it's in the center, and the fact that it's basically a perfect or close to perfect circle that arcs outside of the edge of the face, pretty confident that we've got the left eye correct. Or at least correct relative to the other things. If I botch one of the other references, then it's going to impact this. So we'll keep up with that. And then I can already tell the ear is either too close or the eye is too big because there's not really space for the second eye in here. Okay. It might be the tilt of the ear. It might also be just that I need to start it further off to the right. Let's try adjusting both. This is why you don't get caught up in the details too soon. Oh yeah, because the bottom of the ear is on the third, but it actually tilts pretty far away from it, doesn't it? Okay. See, this is the kind of thing that you can only learn, and that's better if you don't get too caught up on details early, because then you have to erase said details when you look silly. Yes, we'll keep this up. We'll address the fact that this eye, like even in the original, the right eye is a tiny bit narrower than the left one, but still definitely something off here. Maybe this eye is like, I need to shift it. This one gonna cross like right at the middle? Maybe that's the secret. Height-wise, it's similar. Width-wise, it needs to come over. Maybe the ear really is just too big. A little worried about that when I was drawing it. But then, like, I don't know. Seemed like it was right. But now it definitely seems like it's not right. So let's start with this. Oops. Also gonna put this one in just a hair. I think that's more correct. That kind of circle-ish. Just get positioning. We'll make that less terrible later. Because the next thing I want to get is that's going to be helpful is actually defining like the head shape. And you can see it actually like if the eye is correct, then this needs to come up straight up a little higher first. But But then the part that I'm really interested in studying for our style purposes is this piece, which I'll note in my original references was landing a little bit above the third line, but we're also lining it up with the nose and with the edge of the eye here. So I'm pretty confident that's right, and it kind of arcs down to a point right at the center before arcing back up. That less bad. Okay, yeah, the ear's definitely too big and too far to the left. That's our pain point. Got it. Okay, well, we can learn from that. But first off, we can throw the mouth down because the mouth is really fun and goes all the way, wow, yeah, all the way to the bottom corner of this eye. Kind of got it here, and it kind of ends on the middle of the eye and a little lower on this side. We got that. We'll do details later. I'm gonna have to fix the ear, and these crazed pupils are driving me batty. They look just a little too scary, methinks. Really, it does kind of curve out a little bit before arcing back in, but I feel like if I intentionally try to exaggerate that, it's going to end up looking awkward and Sans-like. Which, as much as I like Sans, not what we're going for. Okay. Hairline, we're getting close to the top. The actual top of the hair is fairly narrow, except for, like, it comes down in big, sort of like arcs. And I need to be thinking about that angle more. This does actually tilt in a lot more than I thought. Position-wise, by the time it reaches its top point, it's maybe like, it's not that far into the eye. I may have the eye sticking out a little too far, but it's something we can work with. Did I mention back when I was doing these style studies in pencil and paper before I had a job, I'd spend like 2 or 3 hours like just doing this? So I definitely am rushing a little bit for the sake of us not being here all night. But we can sort of we've got like the one triangle there. We've got a big curve. Gonna arc down and really more of a flat up. This side has more slant than the other side. There we go. By that I mean that like kind of curves inward, whereas the other side kind of just curves up like that. And then we've got the other big arc over here that we're gonna have to figure out ear placement. I feel like head width is gonna be the biggest thing that we messed up on this. At least so far, and it might be something we can fix, but I can tell that my current measures for head width aren't quite doing it. This isn't landing far enough over, ear isn't landing far enough over. So we'll have to rethink some of our proportional guides that we were sort of spitballing earlier. The ear's also not that tall and skinny. It's taller than it is wide, but not by like a crazy margin. Let's keep that going. Soft. It's not like a super pointy chin. It's still rounded off. I mean, there is definitely a culminating point, but it's not like, you know, a nail. Let's see. If this one arcs correctly, it should obscure the top part of the eye. Okay, the ear is at least relative to the eyes in the right place now. I feel fine adding that level of detail, and of course we'll have to get our scritchy scratchies there. Very cool hair. We'll kind of arc this one. Hair usually doesn't stay right on the skull, but it's good to know that our constructed circle was probably not quite accurate for how we would want it to be. Normally I'd kind of want the hair popping off like that, but either we just remember that it's like equidistant from the top for a while, or we adjust our sort of construction lines to follow it. All this becomes a lot less of an issue if you study the style for a long time and like actually practiced in it, and then this stuff becomes gut instinct, just like with actual art. You know, you study it enough, and eventually you get to be able to where you can sort of eyeball most things. Whether or not you should is, of course, up for debate. But it means it's going to be more likely to be something that you're capable of doing. Of course, if you're constantly updating and growing your art style, that may never be the case. You may just keep on refining and changing so there's never anything to memorize, because by the time you memorize it, you've moved on. Let's see. This going on here. Looks like the lower hair in this particular reference, this isn't a useful reference for long term, but for phobia specifically at this angle, it sort of comes out right under the edge of the mouth and leans into the shoulder there. See if we can't get this hair, like right above the point here is where the hair lower section is. We know this goes out much further past where the cheek is. How low does this go? Okay, the flat line is basically level with where the sort of the hairline is, at least is where I'm marking it, is where these points are coming up to. Not an exact measure, but it's the line that I'm referring to. And this is basically just on that line. Then it arcs back out. And this one also comes out further than the cheek, but it arcs its way back up. Like so. Okay, so let's hide our sketch lines. Obviously, this doesn't look exactly like phobia. Well, A, we'd have to add a lot more detail, but, and like you can already tell, the cheek here is a little too steep. But I feel like we have a decent understanding of like some of the mechanics behind trying to draw phobia, other than me fighting with my lines constantly. But yeah, let's keep on going with that. I'll remove anything that be overlapped there. And let's add the details just so we can see the full sort of finished thing. You know, they say trust the process, because when something is halfway through, it never looks good. Or if it does, it ends up looking bad by the end. Just 5 teeth. Biggest one from perspective-wise is going to be on this side. We've got to have vanishing perspective on the teeth. Let's see. And of course, we can't forget this little guy. The first one we drew was better, but that's, you know, that's just the way. This isn't meant to be like a perfect like recreation fan doodle type deal. We're just trying to learn the basics. Let's get the outer iris first, because it like goes up almost against the edge of the eye, and it's easier to sort of eyeball its relative size. There we go, I think that's better. And then this one is kind of centered in the iris and aimed more towards the top of it. Same deal in here, the iris is off to the top left. It's even like a little bit smaller on this one. Oops, thought that had intersected. That's always an interesting eraser deal with the vector erase, is it goes up to where the thing intersects. Like if I erase this line, it'll just go up to this intersection and this intersection. But if you've got something that looks like it might intersect, but you're not sure, it's kind of a gamble. And that'll do. Let's see. Really do love this little comic. It's like for real. You all should go check it out. It's great fun, very fun read. Getting too caught up on specific details of. Actually, this is a learning moment for myself too. When you're trying to figure out style studies, it's not always important to look into the exact specific details of this particular character's pose and alignment, unless your goal is to draw this particular character. Because I was thinking to myself, like, well, the eyelashes are sort of lined up with this part of the forehead, which is useful for drawing it this once, but that's like not a note that's useful to write down, because, you know, every different angle and every different character, that's going to be different. Now, if it's figuring out, like, oh, the eyes, in 3/4 view, the eyes occupy roughly 2/3 of the face, that's useful for, like, creating other characters in the style. Because you can sort of, you know, if you study a few of these characters, not just one, and so you actually can verify that that's a pattern, and you can say, okay, if I'm drawing a real person in this style, or a new character in this style, let me make sure that it also follows that rule. Because otherwise your character will look out of place and kind of weirdly proportioned. Or like their eyes are too far apart. um, okay, and obviously I've been sort of just free-forming it with some of this stuff. Well, free-forming isn't the right word, but not like taking the time to do it with a huge amount of precision. There we go, we can get... there are better ways to do that, I'm sure. And then this edge of the ear doesn't actually need the definition like this. Okay, interesting about the ear is it really does just kind of... A, it's a little more angular at the bottom. It runs into the skull charm more at the bottom and bigger. A few things to learn. But B is that there's no like overlapping line here from the chin or from the ear. This is just a smooth intersection in this style. That seems to vary a lot from artist to artist. So it's always interesting to take note. Okay, well, sort of some color fills and a lot of line quality cleanup. I do think that this proportionally is still recognizable as phobia. Also, if you're ever actually specific for comics, look into how different artists do text balloons. It's crazy how much variation there is. Like seriously wild. You'd think there'd be like, yeah, there's some standards, but like shaping and sizing and how you handle the points, there's still like a lot of just kind of free form options out there. Pretty neat. And looking for how to indicate that someone is thinking. Do you use thought bubbles? Do you use like narration set aside in a box above them? It's just like, well, I'm not going to try to guess Phobia's thoughts. To be fair, I think Phobia's making her thoughts pretty stinking clear in that panel. But yeah, okay. So that's, you know, that's, yeah. What's the right word for that? It's not inspired by, it's not based on. Original character and style. Like seriously, I don't want to take credit for this art style. You should go see the original. Awesome. Daisy McGuire. Also, fun thing, and something that I need to look into more with my color palettes because I want to make a good grayscale color palette for sketching, and so help me, I have missed the mark so many times now. Like if you look at this reference image, it's got a little bit of a purple-ish to it, like a very slight hint, a tint. But it's there. It's not just flat black and white grayscale. Although there's a lot of good stuff in flat grayscale too, like a pure black to white, no color hints. But I'd love to get something going in a slight green, but they all end up looking, because I'm thinking like, oh, nature and moss and such, but they end up looking sickly. And it's like, I need to figure out where I'm going wrong with that, because it's very wrong wherever it is. But yeah, okay. So now that we've done this sort of rough study here, slightly pointier than typical study, let's think about how this is how we can apply this and think about the style in terms of how it handles the problem we've been facing. Because our issue is the nose is too defined and basically becomes the cheek, which pardon me. Obviously that's not the case in this style. The nose is its own thing, and actually there's not a lot of emphasis on the nose itself. That face outline is probably the, like, let's look at our reference for a minute, shall we? If you look at these characters, yes, the noses are actually distinct and independent. You can see he's got sort of like the top arcing down and then a flat bottom, and you recognize that at every angle he's in. You can see that Pepsia here, Pepsiaphobia, yeah, phobia here has like just a sharp point up, and let's see, single loop down. So there's a lot of nose variation. That's actually interesting. A lot of styles don't bother with that too much, so it's actually a good way to show it. But I bet you wouldn't even need the nose for most of the silhouettes to know who was who. Like, the way they do the face outline is more distinct, I would say. The way she does these, like, look at him, he's got like this geometric, like, carve in, like, super defined cheekbones. Mania's face is like soft curves out, while Phobia's are curves in. There's a lot of variance there, so that's interesting to note that they're not sticking to just one style. And that may be part of my flaw, is like, maybe the style that I've been doing is good for a character or a couple characters, but I need to come up with other ways to draw that fit with this style, but are still like their own thing. So actually, with that in mind, let's think about that. Let's throw down a new layer, fade Phobia out a little bit, not that I want to hide Phobia, and let's see if we can't actually apply what we're seeing here. Testing face shapes. Obviously the nose and cheek are still disconnected here, but let's not, like, and I'm okay with giving up on that from the original if that's something we need to do, but let's not assume we have to toss it yet. We've got our original, I mean, you see, this is what I do. I always end up starting with a circle. Usually a terrible circle I draw like 5 times. Close enough. And then I get that middle line down. And then with mine, I've always ended up doing just like the arc out and then back up. But let's try something a little different. Let's see. I don't think we can ever get the super up cheek line unless we do. Okay, one thing at a time. Let's start with like a concave. Instead of the convex, let's start with like a concave face. Let's do like a sharp nose. Okay, and then we'll arc it in. Arcing in. And then up. Then we kind of get this down. Guess we would want to remove anything that's hiding under there. Oh, the eraser's applying to all, not applying to all layers, but looking at all layers for intersections. So like if it intersects a layer below, like here, it's, oops. Okay. But yeah. This looks, sharp faces always make me think of someone who's angry. We could, lean into that for this first one. There we go. That's angrier. Maybe it's because I draw sharp mouths for people who are angry too. We can sort of build off this. I still like the big eyes for now. We'll see. I'm sure there will be times when they're not fitting. And I think we are going to need to smooth out that side of the face a little bit, but that's normal. I feel like the eye line has ended up a little high on this one. Maybe I can ease down a little bit. This is looking increasingly ominous. Give him crazy bangs. Make sure that that's actually centered on the center line if we're going to do this kind of thing. Ear going in here. Interesting. I'm going to try to mimic this ear shape a little bit, but even that's going to vary a little character to character, although a lot less than the nose or the face outline. Because it's only rare that a character's defining trait is the inner styling of their ear. That's not usually what makes someone distinctive in real life or art. And so I'm sort of inclined to maybe agree that you just find one way to do that and stick with it. No reason to overcomplicate that if it's not going to be an important piece. Like a scrunchie or something up here, we can give him crazy long, sharp hair. Be a little more clever with that. There we go. That looks not like a ponytail, but like they've actually got like a cone or something holding it up, but we can run with that. Just gonna kind of arc back down to the back of the head, come up there. Let's see. I'll start by mimicking Phobia's eyebrow style in this one too, just to sort of see. Oops, that's an important line. They're kind of that face too. You can get the very scream look, or we can stick with that angry one. Well, if anything, this makes the nose even more predominant than it is in this style. But, you know, it is at least variance. And still encourages like crazier character design, which is always something good. What if we even tried, like, I know we can't do like the block in jagged like Bauhaus looking face. Do like me some Bauhaus another time. But maybe we can do a really bold square nose and see if that leads us anywhere in terms of character face. Straight square. Just not quite straight square. We can arc it back up. Didn't even draw a circle on this one. I'm just leaping into it. Should have drawn a circle. I always need the circle to figure out how to get the rest of the face looking decent. We're just gonna have to wing it. Now this is another eye type that's not specifically from gastrophobia, but one that I want to do something with, so let's try it. I like the flat top eyes looking very tired. Don't know who this is, but they're exasperated. They have had a day. Even like keeping the back of the face a little more angular feels right on this one too. Okay. Maybe simpler pupils or geometric pupils, like some. I don't know how much to lean into this rectangle thing, but I kind of want to lean into it a lot. I don't know why. This guy just feels like he's straight up bald to me. But like that's obviously the wrong head arc. The correct head arc is, oh no, he's Megamind now. Actually, now this is kind of looking like an Afro type deal. I don't know. Something to think about. Give him a really defined brow line. Maybe not an Afro. Let's. Let me hear option. Oh, actually, this kind of works with bald now too, doesn't it? I don't want him to have a big, weighty head, for lack of a better word. That is a different style of person, almost, than, well, that looks like they've got crazy hair. So does that. See, if I'd drawn the circle, I wouldn't have to mess with these proportions live, and this would all be much better. This is what I get. There, we can make it a parallel to his nose. Okay. So maybe that's actually, maybe that's the lesson we take away. And that's the thing. That's what's nice about these style studies is it's not necessarily you're going in, you're like, okay, I'm going to find one particular piece that I like, and I'm going to copy it into the style. Because that's, I mean, yes, if you've got a piece you like and you want to mimic it, like, yes. But as someone in a tutorial, I don't remember which tutorial, I kind of hated it because the guy was super condescending about the whole mess. But one of his points, despite being delivered annoyingly, was valid. That if you're just looking at different styles and picking out little, like, oh, I like how they do feet, I like how they do eyes, I like their eyebrows, I like the way they do arms, it may come together well. Like maybe your preferences are similar, and so you've got like a kind of cutesy rounded style, and it all just meshes. But the odds are, it probably won't. Either you're going to have stuff from too many different disparate styles, and they're just not going to look like they're connected to the same thing at all. Or, and this is probably the more likely issue, the thing you're drawn to is distinctive in each of those styles, and so everything is going to look super distinctive, and you're not going to be able to guide people's attention because every single piece of the drawing is attention grabbing. Like, with our rectangular dude here, the mouth is obviously not the focal point. It's not the area of focus for this pose. It probably will never be the focal point. He doesn't seem like the sort who would shout or get angry or emote a great deal with his voice, which means that we wouldn't show him moving his mouth a whole lot. So it's never going to be the important detail. Whereas Screaming Angry Girl over there won a big mouth. not angry. That's unfair to her. She just seems aggravated by someone. I feel like someone's been getting on her nerves for a while. But I mean, the nose and sharp chin are obviously big, but having a mouth open wide while yelling is actually going to cause those to move further apart as the chin moves down and accentuate those points even further. So I think it kind of plays well together that way. Not that that was planned. I'm just trying to think out if these were recurring characters. Now, the one thing I will note is Shouty Girl is clearly a little rougher, and the proportions are a little more off, shockingly. Because the nose cheek thing is jarring when it's concave like that, and it breaks my immersion more. Like the way her face is shaped, my brain is like, you should have more face. Or like, also like, looks like Phineas and Ferb. There's just too many points with the top and the bottom. Like maybe this needs to be like that even. I mean, it's a scary design, and it leans into it more. And actually, I do kind of like it better. It doesn't necessarily separate the nose from the cheek, but it does separate the nose from the chin, which I guess is another thing I never really thought about in this style. This style merges the cheek, the chin, and the nose into basically a line. No wonder it doesn't work in 3D view. Way too much stuff that, yeah, works at this particular silhouette angle. Like, yeah, sure. But, like, head view, nose, and cheek, and mouth probably can't be connected in a meaningfully good way. Unless... Okay, that's something in the test. Nose, cheek, mouth, connected. You know, we will try that. We'll give the front view a go right after a quick break, because I gotta use the restroom real stinking bad. Hope that y'all have a good break. I'll see you in just a couple of minutes. Howdys and salutations, y'all, and we are back. Oh, did I have the reference open that entire time I was drawing the... Oops. Oops. Anyway, there's the face. There's the sort of blocky, chunky face. That is my bad. Hope everyone can see that. But yes, where we left off, I believe we were just about to attempt another idea. And this is why I love style studies, is because if you're just... Whoa, what did I do? How did I do that? What happened? Pardon. Okay, temporary fix. Put that away. We don't need it for the moment anyway. I'll have to figure out what happened to that later. Okay, but this is what I really do enjoy about these, is if you just keep drawing in your own style, yes, you can come up with creative ideas and variants and such, especially if you've got like a, you're trying to draw different things in your style, then yes, that'll help. But studying other styles helps you think of things that you wouldn't have ever even considered before. Like, I hadn't even realized that the chin was part of the whole like nose-cheek issue equation, and now that I can pay attention to that, I've got more ideas. But also looking at Pepsiaphobia's style, like having angular faces mixed with rounded ones, I was like, I'll be honest, I had thought of sort of the character on the right before. Like I've had this idea of like, oh, maybe a triangular face is the way to do it. Like different like concave and convex faces would be the solution to the nose thing. I mean, that does look like a face. A very horrifying alien face. Don't like where this has gone. But I hadn't ever thought of actually putting the indent in it to split off the chin from the nose. And I had never thought of having the chin as sort of like a parallel to the nose and like keeping the same sort of angularity. And really my fear with all of that was that if I've got like the cutesy rounded characters, like so, that having a super angular face would be jarringly somehow more cartoony or different. And it, we put them in the same room, maybe it would be. But this has got me thinking about these, and seeing Pepsiaphobia make it work, it's like, oh, okay, that's an option that I hadn't considered before. And so it gets the brain juices a flowing, as they say. I've heard people say that. I don't know if anyone actually says that as a saying, though. Getting the brain juices flowing. Scary. We'll just put him away for now. But yes, nose, cheek, mouth. This is what I want to test. Because I have been the big like sort of point I've been making in the last 2 days about why the perspective thing doesn't work is because yes, you can sort of do the nose is so prominent on this style, I even start with it sometimes. Like, yes, I can do this and it works great in this style. Gotta give that a little more volume, come on now. Just leaving it like that is good enough. There we go. Anyway, this individual, who I feel should have more hair now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, I need to stop tweaking the hair and finish my thought. I can't stop. Okay. Good enough. Good enough, I said. Fine, whatever. There we go. That's hair. That's legally, it's hair. Legally, it's hair, so stop drawing it. I say to myself, who will not stop. Okay. There we go. That actually looks like a haircut now, kind of. Jimmy Neutron looking haircut. It's like something from that show. Focusing. That show had excellent hair variety. That's the thing. It's like you can have a lot of variety in the styles and still have a mesh in the world. See, we're navigating back to the topic. What I meant to say though is because the nose, like cheek and chin are one thing, when you try to draw it in the front view, you end up with this really awkward like kind of nose here and cheeks there, and then like chin, or the cheeks and the chin come to a point, but it ends up looking bad. Not to mention the fact that this particular hairstyle would look stinking wild from a front view. I mean, like, wow. Like, maybe that's recognizably the same character, and if I put more effort into it, would. But the point is that that looks bad. But what if we actually intentionally kept them all as one line? Like, maybe not one complete, like, just a loop like that. But what if, like, we had our curved nose. Let's do this lower down. We had our curved nose, and it led straight into the cheeks. This is going to look like a clown, isn't it? We've got that. We've got our big ol' eye. This is so going to look like a clown. Oh, no. Or like someone in a British wig. Okay. New vote. This is a bad plan. What if we just did a big old rectangle for the face? Mouth. Eyes. Like it's a robot now. Every time someone turns towards the camera, they turn into a robot. I'm sure that wouldn't be jarring. I've actually heard weirder premises for webcomics. It could work. I'm not making that one, though. So that is an issue that we're still going to have to face regardless of different face types. That at some point, someone's face... I don't know why, it just feels like this guy should have, like, crazy long, like, stubble. Have I seen a character that looks like that somewhere? I feel like that's inspiration coming from something I've seen and not just my brain doing that. Anyway, but like I try to draw this guy head on, and like what do I draw? Like a triangle with a mouth coming into it and the eyes? Like this just looks like a bird. And also horrible. And I hate it. So that's clearly wrong. But then like what does this nose look like in front view? Is their face just like a big old rectangle block and they've got like a circle coming out the back of it? With ears? And like technically this looks less bad than the other one, but it still looks bad. Well, we can at least get a decent circle back here. Nope. Jarring. I mean, again, this is why so many characters, if you look in comics and stuff, they never look right at you. Like, even when they're looking right at you, they don't look right at you. To be fair, that might actually be true of people, too. Like, think about it. Really, really think about a character. You know, a lot of them do. Like, Ziggy or Garfield, sure. I'm sure they've stared directly at you before. I'm sure it's horribly intimidating when Garfield does it. That's an injury I hadn't noticed before. Interesting. Unrelated, though. Moving on. Just a small scratch. You know how those just show up sometimes. But, like, then you get other characters, and it's like they have never looked directly at the camera. Like, not really. Like, their eyes may be focused on you, but they're not looking directly at you. Because they've always got at least, like, one cheek that's out, and it's like this. So even if they're, like, clearly looking at you, like, this guy sees us, and his disapproving gaze stares upon us. However, like, this is clearly not actually looking at us. The nose is like Picasso chaos over here. friendly. Feel the judgment more now. But like, yeah, now they look like they're chewing. I don't like this. Anyway, point is we're learning some things. Maybe, probably, who knows. And also at this rate, I think maybe I just take Owl House out of the stream title because I'm not sure we're gonna even get to that one, let alone. We will. I'll make sure we have time for a little Owl House in here. It's a fun style. And one that I greatly enjoy. Also a very cute show. I need to catch up on the latest episodes, but I can only see it on Disney Plus because we don't like get cable or whatever the heck it's on. And they're always super slow to update that for reasons that annoy me. They still seem to treat Disney Plus as like an archive where people can go and rewatch, which strictly speaking is better than having it on like live only and then it's just gone. But like a lot of people, that's their only source, and like I'm not ever getting like cable or probably satellite. Like why? Why would I do that? Who cares? That stuff's expensive and has terrible, terrible advertisements. You know what's crazy? When they invented cable, it was advertised as like, this is the source without interruptions and advertisements. Like, you should really watch it on cable. And now it's like the most disgusting garbage ever. So I assume that's the way streaming services are going to go eventually. Although I appreciate that Netflix still has its usable version. And if we have to pay a premium for it, might be worth it. I mean, if cable had a version that you could pay for without ads, people would so buy that. Which is the ominous sign that maybe ads are more profitable than subscriptions. And so maybe the ads are inevitable. It's weird, because on the one hand, I hate ads. Someone has spent a lot of money to specifically waste my and a bunch of other people's time. That's obviously not the goal, but that's frequently how it functions in practice. They're like, we're going to interrupt the thing you want to do because we are paying for your attention. But on the flip side, how many things are supported by ads that otherwise would have no chance of being funded? And it's only because people think it's valuable enough to stick their thing in front of our face for a few moments. Poor phrasing on that. To stick their art or advertisement or whatever in our way, that they're willing to sponsor a whole bunch of actual art and shows and entertainment and stuff. It's crazy. Neat. I mean, heck, even college, like sports. They support the sports and spend insane amounts of money on it because theoretically it brings in more money and attention and prestige. Now, granted, sometimes they go too far and neglect the actual academics. I have some issues with my university having done that. They cover the academics, but not evenly, and they're neglecting some of it. Anyway, that is a rant for another day, and not a day on which I'm tired, because I'm going to go off the rails if I do that. How did we end up on cable net? Anyway. Point is, oftentimes cartoon characters don't look directly at the screen. That's a logical conclusion from everything we just heard, right? Like, you know, if this was a well-structured argument, each section definitely led to that conclusion. But it means you might end up with characters that are more, you know, I actually kind of don't hate this. Weird. Off-putting, but I don't completely hate it. Maybe that's the secret, is I need whiteheads. Like, the new style is Megamind. I'm sure that's going to vary with the character to some extent. But yeah, that actually may be part of the issue with my style when I'm trying to translate it too, is my brain's like, oh, the bulk of the focus is in the nose, cheek, chin thing, so that's what I needs to be big. When in reality, if you look at a human head, that's not how they're shaped. Like even this one, like proportionally that doesn't make sense. It should be like this. Still looks bad, but like, the point is, ooh. Might try a different ear style if it's like this. Looks like they have earrings built into their like cheekbone. And this just looks like not the ears but the back of the head. I guess it could become part of the ear if we do like a little geometric-y thing like that. Huh, weird. Anyway, random doodles to learn things are not the same quite, but they're useful things that can come out of this. And yeah, let's see where we're at. Another thing, while I'm on this train of thought, and I'll be honest, I'm probably gonna wrap up a little early tonight. I am so behind on sleep, it's absurd. And it's starting to impact work. So like my folks are asking if I'm okay, which is never a good sign. I am doing fine, really. I just need to actually go to sleep. And as I'm sure many of you experienced, the more tired I am, the harder it is to go to sleep. Not because like I get antsy or nervous or whatever, but because my default state is to want to stay awake, and it takes energy and willpower to choose not to do that, to choose to go to bed. And so if I'm doing well and keeping it balanced, it's easy for me to get to bed on time and maintain that. But, if something throws a wrench in that plan, then once I'm off track, it's so hard for me to get back on track. But it is nice because it means when I am on track, it's easy enough to stay on track. But yeah, I'm sure y'all can tell from my meandering commentary and frequent yawns that I probably need to check in pretty soon. So actually, yeah, I am going to update our stream info to toss Owl House. As much as I love it, we'll have to do it another time. And that said, I'll make sure we spend the last couple minutes looking at something I'm working on, assuming the people that I'm trying to surprise with it haven't poked their heads in. They have not. Good. Good. And I'm quite confident, I'm not 100%, but I'm fairly confident they ain't watching my YouTube VODs. That said, if you're in one of my D&D groups, I'll give you a warning, but don't look when I say. Close the video, leave the stream, goodbye. But not yet. We still got a new train of thought that I know I was working on. Oh, right. Having pointed-ish chin, like actually having a more proportioned chin, with the big nose style. Not big mouth though. That show. Look, I don't ever want to trash someone's art style, especially when in that one it's clearly intentionally grotesque because they're leaning into that sort of theme. But that theme is not my cup of tea. To each their own. It's obviously I'm not the target audience for that show. But holy cow, I wish Netflix would stop like showing it on the front of everything because it really succeeds at the goal of looking uncomfortable. And it's like, oh. And then they get other shows that like I feel they don't understand the point of that show being specifically kind of off-putting. And so you get other shows that kind of sort of are in that ish style. And it's like, no, that style is a tool. It's a cleverly implemented one, but like, use it well. Don't just throw it at the wall. Also, does anyone watch Big Mouth? I've never met anyone who watches Big Mouth, but incidental evidence is not, useful. So and Netflix keeps making it, or at least they did for a long time. I assume someone watched it. Somewhere, probably. Okay. I mean, this could work. If we lean into the nose of this sort, alternatively, we could lean into the never have the nose off screen type deal, and even if it's a front view, and we really lean into front view, it's still technically a side view. Yeah, getting some BOTW music in here. Okay, that's an acronym. Some acronyms you say out loud and you're like, yeah, this works. Others do not. That one did not. That looks... I mean, again, I'm just doing sloppy little doodles at this point, but... The point is, both of these have their strengths and weaknesses. In this case, both of their weaknesses is the neck. That structurally is not sufficient to support someone's head. But, okay, I do think, let's do a little wrap-up of thoughts. I do think we've had some good insights, namely adjusting the face shape. So big thank you to Daisy and all of Pepsiaphobia's stuff for the inspiration there. Awesome comic, you should go read it. That's not the opacity slider. That's the opacity slider. Definitely go read this stuff. Very fun comic. Highly recommend. Also, if you ever just wanted to mimic an art style to like make a make an OC, or like you know, you just really like it and you want to make fan art, this is sort of a way to do that. It's a technical, overthought out way, but that's my cup of tea always. Um, that is how I live my life. Technical and overthought out. Better or for worse. It does help me dodge pitfalls. But yes, big thanks back to the focus at hand. If I'm really thinking ahead, then I'm going to go to stinking sleep. Back to the matter at hand. Big thanks for this awesome style being awesome. And for some inspiration. Well, this guy is a thing, which was technically inspired by attempting to separate nose and mouth. And I feel could have great success in the NFT world, which means that I will never let it see the light of day. No NFTs. Bad. No. Environmentally dangerous. Beyond all the legal and copyright stuff, it also destroys the planet. Just like, forget that mess. Good theory, horrible practice. Good theory being actually enabling artists to have an original, even if digitals. That's cool. But what they've done is garbage. Hot garbage. Complete catastrophic implementation, money-grabbing scum approach. Not that the people are that, but this approach has turned into that. So, like, yeah, bad. NFT's bad. I don't get political, but that's not political. That's just my opinion on a bad economic decision. Don't get NFTs. No objection to someone creating their own art and selling NFTs of their own art? Sure. I mean, the environmental impact is still a worry, so minor objection, but not the same level of objection as scraping the internet and stealing other people's art and then conning people into buying it by saying it's going to be a good long-term investment, the same way that a Beanie Baby scam artist of the 90s would do. Okay. Let's see. But yes, insights. Different geometric face shapes can still work in the same world. Now, I do think we'd maybe want the head sizes to be more similar for this to really work. I think that is one issue here. Actually, we can test that theory. Zoop. This is the joy of digital art. You can mess around with sizes and not break things. Let's see. I mean, yeah, we'd have to adjust some of the features a little bit. I still think her features are probably a little too exaggerated, even by cartoon standards. But, like, I could, you know, with a little bit of tweaking, I could believe these two being in the same world. It wouldn't even take, like, a crazy amount. Heck, maybe we even just, like, smooth the nose a little bit. No, then it looks like a pig nose. Yeah, see, okay, that doesn't work. But I'm sure there's things we can do. Maybe less sharp. And when we get the convex curve like that, convex this way anyway, I guess it'd be concave from that angle. Like, it always ends up looking awkward. Well, I guess that's a face, isn't it? Flintstones character. I don't know if it does. It's been so long since I've seen the Flintstones. I have no idea what they look like. I also don't really... Like, you can tell I look at a lot of, like, really cartoony characters. I don't know how to draw normal stinking hair. Like, just, like, a flat, like, shortcut for a guy. Not that the other hair is... you know, not to imply other hair is abnormal. That's not my haircut, for example. But, like, it is a common one. And it'd be nice to be able to illustrate it in a way that was... Oh, I guess that kind of works. Okay. I don't really know what happened with this guy. I'm not sure he'd belong in the same world as he definitely wouldn't, but it's mainly because of the eye. He stares into my soul. Okay, don't like. I mean, I do, he's better than Scary Man. I'll give him that. But their eyes have a similar problem. Okay, but I do think that's enough style studies for tonight. We're going to wrap up at the 30-minute mark, so 2 minutes away. So, for real, if you're actually in one of my D&D groups, like, stop watching the video now, bail on the stream. We'll come back. We'll come back next time and do either more style studies, or maybe we'll actually work on this. That'll be on Monday. week before Halloween, maybe we'll actually do some spooky stuff. I've got characters who are witches, and I need to build up their coven a little bit. So maybe I make no promises. This month has been trying to actually improve my drawing style. You know, all the fun and games do help with that, but sometimes it's worth taking dedicated time to really like stop and think about what you're doing instead of just going with the flow, so that next time you can aim your flow in a better direction. Send that river to a different coast. This allegory is getting weird. Anyway, sneak preview. So I hope y'all have all turned off because I'm actually going to show the sneak preview. I have been attempting to learn animation, and while I can't show this particular character because I haven't asked the person who owns it, and so I'm actually kind of glad I didn't have the face on there yet. But this is basically just following along, not traced or anything. I just looked at Caramel Dancing and did a super rough sketch of it. But you can, it's a start. It's an outline, and I can start making the D&D characters around it, so we can have our group, and I think that'll be fun. Also, the version of Clip Studio Paint I have only gives me 24 frames to work with, because animation's kind of a like highest tier exclusive thing. So I can't quite get it to sync with the song right, because I need to. So here's the thing. It almost syncs with the song, and it will drift in and out of sync the way it currently is, because each loop on this is 6 frames, whereas each sort of song beat actually happens every 5.8 frames, or every 5.8 loops. No, each beat is 5.8 frames, which means that every 5 loops it gets a frame out of sync with the song. Obviously not the current song, I'm talking about Caramel Dancing. But I think y'all get my drift. So it would sync up with Caramel Dancing, because if I had enough loops that I could actually fit in every 5, I could just drop a frame from one of the loops, like drop one of the hold frames, and that way it would stay mostly in sync. So every 5 loops, it's like a leap. It's like an inverse leap year. Instead of adding 1 day every 4 years, we have to remove 1 frame every 5 loops. But it's the same kind of concept of just keeping stuff a little bit in sync, because they're technically slightly out of sync. But since I only have 24 frames to work with, I can't get enough loops in to do it. Just barely shy. Just shy of it. But I'm sure if I'm creative or like stitch some loops together, apologies again, that we could make it work. Until then, though, it's a nice proof of concept. Now, I will say for animation, definitely like start by reading up on like easing in and timing and spacing and squish and squash and all that fun stuff. There's stuff to read about first. Don't like, if you just follow an animation template and match it frame by frame, yes, it'll probably work, but it's because whoever originally designed it does it already. So I do want to do some animation. I want to get a little better at it before we're doing it a lot on stream. And I want to be confident that I have the energy to stick with it. But actually, because I tried last year, and it's time consuming. And also my digital art skills were much weaker last year. It was really like 2 years ago almost at this point. It really was. But yeah, so I was trying it then, and my digital art wasn't good enough to get even remotely consistent shapes. Like even these roughs would have been beyond what I could do. And so I read a whole bunch of the theory, and I did some of the like ball animations where you just do a bouncing ball or a rolling ball and stuff like that. And drawing the sack of flour. All of this stuff makes sense if you've like dug into animation stuff a bit. At least I hope it does. Otherwise, I'm on a real heckin' tangent right now. But yeah, all that stuff. But I realized I need to go practice my drawing skills more for digital art. But we're better. Like I've still got a ways to go. But after mainly one of the biggest things from Sword Timber was figuring out how to draw fast and still have it look good enough. And so that means that I wouldn't be spending like 4 hours on a frame. And I've gotten more comfortable with the tools and all that jazz. So we've come a long way since those days. So it might be viable to actually put some cute little short animations together. And since I've already got a couple hours a week committed to streaming, it might not be a bad time to do it. But I assure you this, it won't be in November, because November, we're going to be doing something completely different. Oh, and I'm looking forward to it. But maybe December. Or if not December, then maybe January. That'd be a fun way to kick off the year. Is 2023 would be the year of animation. Ooh. Okay, I'm not going to overcommit to that. What I've done is drawn 4 frames and then flipped them so it's 8 frames. That's not enough to commit to a year of animation. And, you know, this is following caramel dancing. So all of the like timing and positioning and stuff is already worked out. But that'd be a fun thing to do next year. But as we've mentioned, November is going to be Blender 3D modeling. Ooh, that stuff's fun. It's also, you know, honestly, I don't know if Blender has gotten better over the years, or if some of that stuff I learned in that one college class I took like 5 or 6 years ago now, cheapers, many years ago, actually stuck around, even though that wasn't Blender, it was from Maya. But one way or the other, Blender's not, like, don't get me wrong, it's like Dark Souls. If you go in expecting it to be just immediately easy and intuitive, it's going to be a horrible, horrible, miserable nightmare of a time. If you go in expecting it to be kind of confusing and challenging, and you're okay with like kind of a start and stop, you're going to fail and just have to keep working through it, then it's actually not that bad. And it's not nearly as intimidating as it's hyped up to be. But that is one of those things where if you go in expecting it to be a breeze, it's awful. I guess that's a note. I actually quite enjoyed Dark Souls despite not being a hardcore gamer. Because I liked the world. I thought it's beautiful and very cool and fascinating. So I kept my main motive for the game was to want to see the world, which is kind of silly. It's like light the flame, sure. Yeah, fine, whatever. Or extinguish it, whatever folks want to do. But like, let me go tour Anne Orlando. Let me go check out like not the Tomb of the Giants. No one's thinking wants to go there. But you know what I mean. See the sights. Although again, in Tomb of Giants, you cannot do that because it's pitch black and awful. But the point is, I went in expecting not to get anywhere near in the game. I was like, it would be fun to do. I doubt that I also went in with a fair bit of foreknowledge. I doubt I'm going to get past the Capper Demon. Like, I'm going to go in, the folks of the Berg are going to beat the snot out of me, and I'm going to be like, well, this was fun. But, and don't get me wrong, they beat the snot out of me. A lot. I remember spending a lot of time in not lower, just upper Undead Berg specifically. So much time there. It feels as cozy as Firelink to me, just hanging out there. Even early game when I'm like can still die to the enemies a lot. It's still just like, hey guys, good to see ya. But, it was fun. And wow, okay, yeah, that's a sign I had to go to bed. My brain just ended the thought. But yeah, so I went in expecting it to be horrible, and it wasn't. It was a challenge, but it wasn't the impossible nightmare I expected it to be. And so I actually ended up finishing the game and doing a lot of other stuff with it too. DLC and everything. Got halfway decent at it. And also super defensive, because that's my jam. Like I said, overthink and overplan. Bring a big shield. Then Dark Souls 3 happened, and they're like, shields are bad. You need to actually be agile and quick. And I was like, and then I died a lot. Because I went in confident. I was like, I beat Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 3 shouldn't be too bad. And then it smacked me upside the head like that game tends to do. So all of this is a roundabout way to say, if you go into Blender expecting it to be a challenge, you'll probably have a better time. Know that you're going to have to like grit down. It's going to be confusing sometimes, but it's not completely inaccessible and impossible to learn. That said, find a guide. Find like a tutorial or something to get you started. The donut course is good. I know it's the stereotype, but it's good. It works well. Do not like just go in blind and try to guess what all the buttons do. You won't even be able to navigate the 3D space. Like I said, it's not intuitive necessarily, but it's not unapproachable. You just need to approach it with the right mindset and the right tools. Which is true of anything, really. If you approach it with the wrong mindset or with the wrong tools, it's gonna go bad. Heck, even learning to draw with a pencil and paper, if you approach with the mindset of like, I just need to be able to put what's in my head on the paper, you're going to get real frustrated pretty quick unless you can sort of find some guides on how to draw, how to control your pencil, how to like hold it in a way where you're not going to like mush it into the page and make super dark marks that leave like indents, which is what I did for a long, embarrassingly long time. there's stuff you'll have to learn, but if you go in expecting to not nail it the first try and have to learn things, it's it's doable. It's something that you can do. I hope that was an inspirational message and not just inane ramblings. It was probably some horrible mix of both. In either case, I think that is probably a sign that I ought to call it for the night. Gonna try to get to bed at a halfway decent hour, like I was saying. And so I will hopefully see y'all next time, where we will continue. Yep, that really is a sign. But we will continue doing this. We will continue figuring out how to cartoon. Maybe we should actually look at some faces and see if we can't come up with really abstract exaggerations. The only problem with that you have to be careful with is I don't want any exaggerations that happen to align with like racial stereotypes, because then they stop being fun cartoonized exaggerations and start being just racist. So it's just something to be mindful of as I do this. But I don't think any of these are landing in that boat right now. So I think that we've got something to work with, and I think this will unlock the style that I've been sort of stuck on. Whoops. I've been stuck on with these guys, of them all looking kind of similar. They have the problem that a lot, although not all anime have, where everyone's got the same face. Although again, a lot of shows are much better about that. But yeah, okay, so that's it. We'll come back to that. We'll do more practice. Maybe we'll dig back into Salt's crew and that coven. They're a fun bunch, and ones that I want to actually write stories for, so I can sort of, I don't know if you can say get to know the characters if you're the one writing them, but it sort of feels like that. Like, my best defined characters are ones that I either made a character in a video game, and even if like the character traits are nothing like anyone in the game, just the way I end up playing impacts how I think that character makes decisions. Or of course for Dungeons and Dragons, if you have to put yourself in their shoes, like you start making decisions, you're like, oh, I wouldn't have thought this character would make this decision before today. It's kind of interesting. It's fun. But yeah, I will wrap it. I'll stop my rambling. See, this is okay. Maybe I won't stop my ramblings because I just started a new thought. But this is a good wrap-up thought. This is what I mean about how the more tired I am, the worse it is for me to get to bed. Because right now, it's hard for me to even choose to wrap up the stream, let alone choose to then sleep, because there's so many things that my brain is just rambling on to. If I had energy, I'd be able to say, okay, I'd be able to come up with a good wrap-up note and say, okay, we're done, we're wrapped. But that ain't happening tonight. So instead, I think I'm just gonna have to hard cut it and say, peace out, good night, y'all.